home, and may God's peace be upon you this fine morning. We have discussed so many things about biology, but do you know, my dear students, staying safe at home doesn't mean to stay idle. So we are staying safe to prevent us from COVID-19, but our routine works should go on. You know very well that all the companies started working. Many companies have told to work from home, and being students, shouldn't you learn? Yes, that is why we are continuing this video classes through YouTube, our channel. My dear students, in our last classes we discussed so many things about the asexual and sexual reproduction in plants. And in this video, you will be learning some more details, some more topics in that classes. Now we are discussing sexual reproduction in plants. We discussed anther, TS of mature anther, how pollen grains are formed, how pollen tube forms. In our last class, we discussed the structure of ellers of ovule and the types of ovule based on the position of funiculars, micropyle and chalaza. And in this class, you will be learning about megasporogenesis. When we speak about megasporogenesis, it is nothing but the process of development of megaspore from megaspore mother cell. So microsporogenesis we discussed in our earlier classes, where the microspores are produced by microspore mother cell. Here megaspores, development of megaspore from megaspore mother cell is called as megasporogenesis. Now what happens in this megasporogenesis? It's very nice and easy. So you know very well that the nucellus is there. Nucellus, the central part of the ovule, which is the main part of the ovule. The one cell in the ovule that becomes archisporium. So this is archisporial cell. This archisporial cell will have the outer parietal cell and inner sporogenous cell. So the nucellus, one cell in the nucellus becomes archisporial cell, and it will have a parietal cell and sporogenous cell. This sporogenous cell will act as megaspore mother cell. This megaspore mother cell will divide mitotically. This megaspore will divide into 4 haploid megaspores. So by mitotic division, it gives 4 haploid megaspore cells. So what happens here, you imagine? So this cell will elongate and 4 cells are formed. In this, so you imagine that this is the micropylar end. This is integuments and this is micropylar end. This is the chalazal end. So the cell which is towards the chalaza, that will become functional, and other 3 will degenerate. Those 3 will degenerate, and one towards the chalazal end, this cell alone it forms functional, and this will take place in embryo sac formation. Okay, so out of 4, 1 will become functional and other 3 will degenerate. The one which is towards the chalazal end will become functional. So this will become embryo sac. So embryo sac formation occurs like this. So now, based upon this formation of embryo sac, they are classified into monosporic. Monosporic means one cell among the 4 megaspores. Here you see 4 megaspores are formed. Only one cell, what it became nutritive, it became functional, isn't it? So if it occurs, if one cell becomes, then that is said to be monosporic. Example, polygonum. If one cell becomes, that is monosporic. Then what will be bisporic? Yes, two cells will become functional and 2 cells are degenerated. So those 2 cells, so that is said to be bisporic. 2 cells become functional. Example, allium family, so bisporic. So now tetrasporic. What do you mean by tetra? Tetra means 4 cells. So all the 4 cells will become functional. So that is said to be tetrasporic. Example, peperomia. So this is the how the megaspores are formed from a nucellus, one cell of nucellus. So again I tell you, here one cell of the nucellus becomes archisporial cell. It will form outer parietal and inner sporogenous cells. Then again it will mitotically divide. That megaspore mother cells will divide 4 haploid megaspores. Out of the 4, the one which is towards the chalaza, that becomes functional and the other 3 will degenerate. So in such a case, that is called as monosporic. Maximum monosporic will occur, and sometimes even bisporic is formed, where 2 megaspores will become functional and the other 2 will degenerate, that is bisporic. And finally tetrasporic, where all the 4 becomes functional. So how this embryo sac cells are formed? Let's discuss now. You imagine that this is the embryo sac. I said that one cell is present here. That is, out of 4, other 3 degenerated and only 1 is functional. Now what happens? It divides mitotically. So 2 cells are formed. Understand, my dear students, this is the embryo sac now. Embryo sac is formed. Inside the embryo sac, how will be the cells? That is what we are discussing now. So 2 cells are formed. They move towards the pole. So what are the poles? Imagine this is the micropylar end. And this is the chalaza end. Here all cells are there, chalaza, and here after nucellus, this is micropylar end. So they move towards the opposite pole. It will be pushed. And mitotically it divides twice. So now already one cell is there. Twice it undergoes mitotic division. So how many cells are formed? Twice. So in mitotic division, one cell will give you 2 daughter cells. So twice the mitotic division occurs. Therefore 4 cells are formed. 4 cells are formed in both the cells. Among this, 3 will be here and 1 will move. 1 will be left over in the center itself. So 3 cells. So 1. Now we'll see how this is organized here. So towards the micropylar end, these cells are there. No, these 3 cells are called as egg apparatus. The 3 cells. How they are formed? They are formed 2 cells called as synergids. Okay, 2 cells synergids, and the next one H cell. So these synergids and H cell together called as egg apparatus. Okay, where will it be? It will be in micropylar end. Okay, in embryo sac was the micropylar end. 2 synergid cells and 1 H cell is there, which comprises egg apparatus. Okay, so opposite to it, in the chalazal end, so near the chalazal end, same way 3 cells will be present. 3 cells. Three cells. In some they will draw like this, or some they will draw like this also for easy understanding. But now, so here see three cells. These three cells are called as antipodals. Antipodals. So these three cells are called as antipodals. Now already I told you. So four cells are formed by mitotic divisions, and only three form as egg apparatus, three form as antipodals. What happens to the other one? So 1 plus 1, 2 cells are there, isn't it? So they will be in the center. They will be in the center. So they are called as polar nucleus. Polar nucleus. Polar nucleus. This is polar nucleus. Sometimes they will be seen fused with each other. At that time it is called as secondary nucleus. Secondary nucleus. Those two polar nuclei fuse to form secondary nucleus. Clear? So this is the structure of embryo cell. Now, so the main role here, this totally in this the synergids, synergids, they secrete some chemotropic substances, some chemicals. They secrete some chemicals. So that helps to attract the pollen tube. We discussed in a male reproductive part itself that the pollen grain, after reaching the stigma, after landing, then it forms a pollen tube once it is attached, isn't it? So this synergids, they secrete a chemical substance, a chemotropic substance, where it attracts the pollen tube towards it. Okay, point number 1. And same way, near the synergids, there will be some special cellular thickening. Okay, some thickenings will be present. They are called as filiform apparatus. Okay, filiform apparatus that is used for the absorption and conduction. This filiform absorption and conduction of nutrients from nucellus to embryo cell. From nucellus to embryo cell, the absorption and conduction takes place by this some cellular thickening in the near the synergids called as filiform apparatus. This is the structure of embryo sac. Okay, so this egg cell, they involve in the formation the germination, that is fertilization, that we shall discuss later. My dear students, now again once I recall, so this is embryo sac. The cell divides mitotically, 2 cells are formed. They undergo twice mitotic division, so 4 cells are formed. Among them 3 are egg apparatus comprising 2 synergids and 1 egg cell, and 3 are antipodals, and remaining 2 cells, one from this micropylar and one from chalazoid. Those 2 are called as polar nucleus, which will be present at center, and sometimes they fuse to form secondary nucleus. And again totally this near the synergids, they secrete some chemical substances for the attraction of the pollen tube, and near the synergids there is some cellular thickening called as filiform apparatus, where it is used for absorption and conduction of the nutrition from nucellus to embryo sac. This is the structure of embryo sac. Now let's discuss an important and interesting topic. Wait for it. So you will be waiting what the topic is, isn't it? Of course. The next topic which we are about to discuss is pollination. So from your 6th standard you would be learning about pollination, but little more the types we will be discussing in this 12th standard. Because pollination, generally when we say pollination, hope you know, it is nothing but transfer of pollen grains. Transfer of pollen grains, that is the male reproductive part. The transfer of pollen grains from where? From anther to stigma of a flower. So this is called as pollination. Generally, what we can say as pollination, transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of a flower. transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of a flower. So this is called as pollination. So why this pollination should occur? Generally for fertilization, for the formation of fruits and seeds, pollination is necessary. The fusion of pollen grain to the stigma is very necessary. We know that very well. But how it happens? It happens because of some external factors also. The wind is there, it transfers pollen grains to stigma. Or sometimes the animals also. There are animals for food and shelter, they go anywhere, and sometimes they take this and all the insects, butterflies, they sit on a flower, they take the nectar. At the same time, they carry these pollen grains and it makes to fall on some stigma. So the pollination, this transfer is called as pollination. Now, so this pollination, when we see, it is the characteristic feature of all spermatophytes. So what are spermatophytes? Nothing but gymnosperms and angiosperms. Gymnosperms and angiosperms. So characteristic feature of all gymnosperms and angiosperms. So this pollination occurs, that is the transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of a flower occurs in all the plants of gymnosperm and angiosperm. But there is a slight difference. That is, in gymnosperm, it is called as direct pollination. Because, do you remember why do we say it as direct? Because in gymnosperms, the seeds are naked. So there is no, directly the pollen grain falls on ovule only. So the seeds are naked. So that is why it is said to be direct. But in case of angiosperms, it is indirect pollination because the seeds ovule is not naked. So it has to transfer the pollen grain should transfer, then it should reach the ovule, isn't it? So it is called as indirect pollination. So now again, this pollination occurs only when the flowers open. So when the flowers are open, the pollination, that is the anther, pollen grains are produced that falls on stigma. Okay, so now we have two terminologies to be known in this pollination. Two terminologies. One is the flowers open and they expose mature anther to stigma. They open it. That is called as chasmogamous. Chasmogamous flowers. Chasmogamous flowers, they open, the flowers open and they expose, the pollen grains falls on the stigma. So for pollination. So chasmogamous, and this process is called as chasmogamy. Chasmogamy. This is one. Okay. At the same time, in some flowers are closed. The flowers will be closed. Okay. So the anther from the same flower will, what happens? Will fuse with the stigma of the same flower. Because now the flowers are not open. It is closed one. Therefore, it is closed. That is said to be cleistogamous. Cleistogamous, and the flowers process is called as cleistogamy. Okay, so chasmogamous, the flowers open and then the pollination occurs. Cleistogamous flowers are closed. So that is said to be cleistogamous, and the process is called cleistogamy. Do you remember? We studied this term in where? In endothelium. In tears of mature anther, in the anther wall, we discussed this term, cleistogamic flowers. Now, this pollination is broadly classified into two. Pollination is broadly classified into two. One is self-pollination. Self-pollination called as autogamy. Gamy, we know marriage, isn't it? So gamy, fuse, autogamy. And the other one is cross-pollination. Cross-pollination, allogamy. Allogamy. So here, what is a self-pollination? That is, the anther, the pollen grain from the anther falls on the stigma of same flower. So in same flower it occurs. So in the same flower. So that is said to be self-pollination. So pollination occurs between the anther, the pollen grain and stigma of the same flower is called as self-pollination. So hope we know what is cross-pollination, isn't it? So now what is cross-pollination? The pollination occurring between the pollen grain and stigma of different flowers. Different flowers. Here same flower, there different flowers. Pollination occurring between different flowers, that is said to be cross-pollination. Now, so self-pollination, let us discuss more about this self-pollination now. So when we speak self-pollination, there are some conditions when it occurs. So the types of self-pollination, as we already discussed, the first one is cleistogamy. When the flowers are closed, okay, generally it is seen in Camelina. Camelina, a plant, Camelina. So in this plant, the shoot system, the flowers which are present in the shoot system will have open flowers. So the pollination is chasmogamous. The flowers are open, but in the root there will be flowers. So this Camelina is a special plant where the flowers are present even under the soil, and those flowers are closed one. So cleistogamous. So understand, dear students, when the flowers are closed, then what is the possibility? The anther, the pollen grain from the anther should fall on the stigma of the same flower only. That is the only possibility, isn't it? Therefore, this cleistogamy is one case of self-pollination. So within the flower, the pollination occurs. Cleistogamy. Then second one, homogamy. What is homogamy? Homogamy, we know that homo means same. Same. So here the stigma and stamen. Stamens male part, stigma female part. So stamens and stigma mature at same time. So what happens? This stamens will fall on the stigma, therefore pollination occurs. So they mature at same time, therefore it happens. Mirabilis jalapa. Our 4 o'clock plant, no? We have discussed about Mirabilis jalapa earlier itself. So there homogamy occurs. Okay. So what is homogamy? Stamens and stigma mature at the same time, leading to self-pollination. This is called as homogamy. Now third one is incomplete dichogamy. Incomplete dichogamy. So homogamy is same, mature at the same time. Dichogamy, they mature at different time. Okay, stamens and stigma, they mature at different time. But why we say different time means then it leads to cross pollination, isn't it? That is why we add a word incomplete here. So what happens at times? At times the maturity of stamen and stigma may overlap, may coincide, leading to self-pollination. So that possibility is also present here. So that is said to be incomplete dichogamy. So this is also seen in some plants. So this is the classification of self-pollination. I repeat, cleistogamy, where the flowers are closed. Example, Camelina. It lies below the soil, root system, therefore pollination occurs, self-pollination occurs. Homogamy, that is the stamens and stigma mature at the same time. Mirabilis jalapa is the example. So that is homogamy. Incomplete dichogamy, stamens and stigma mature at different time, but sometimes they overlap, leading to self-pollination. These are the 3 types of self-pollination. Then next type, cross-pollination. cross pollination. That is, the stamens of one flower fuse with stigma of another flower, isn't it? So the pollen grains from anther from one flower will fall into stigma of another flower. It is called as cross pollination. Broadly they are classified into two, that is Dichtonogamy. Dichtonogamy means another flower only, as we know that it is another flower only, but in the same plant. In the same plant, the one flower, the anther will fall on the stigma of another flower, but in the same plant. So same plant, another flower means then what is the condition? It is occurring in monoecious plants. Okay, another flower of the same plant. In contrast, we have next type called xenogamy. That is another flower of different plant, not of the same plant, of different plant. Okay, that is xenogamy. So broadly it is classified into denatogamy and xenogamy. Denatogamy, the fusion or the pollination occurring between the pollen grains of one flower to stigma of another flower, but in the same plant. But xenogamy is in different plants. Now, what are the possibilities of this cross pollination? How does this pollination occurs? Okay, that it is given as contrivances of cross pollination in your book. That is possibilities. What are the chances for it to become? Okay, so generally this we can call it as outbreeding, because something, okay, to some other flower it happens. Now, my dear students, understand very well. There are different types here. Just go through well. First one is dicliny. Okay, or we can say as unisexuality. So here, unisexuality means flowers having only one sex. That is, it will have either male reproductive part or female reproductive part. Okay, that is why we say as unisexuality. Okay, so when it has only male part in it, then how self-pollination occurs, isn't it? Sure, that anther should fall on, the pollen grains should fall on some other flower only. So that is said to be dicliny or unisexuality. So in this we have two things. One is monoecious plants and another one dioecious plants. What is monoecious plants? We told already, isn't it? So male flower, female flower, female flower, they are present in the same plant. Male flower and female flower will be present in the same plant. So the pollen grains from the male flower will land on the stigma of the female flower. So that is monoecious plants. This dicliny type is occurring there. So example, we know that it is coconut. Our coconut, resinous, castor. Castor, if you see, you can see male flower and female flowers individually, but in the same plant it occurs. That is monoecious. Dioecious means male flower and female flower will be in different plants. So male plant bears the male flower. Some plant will bear the female flowers. Okay. Here we discussed as in the same plant, male flower and female flowers will be present. Here, male flower will be in one plant, female flower will be in another plant. Okay. Our palm, date palm, or papaya, you can see, you would have observed in some papaya plant, fruits, papaya will not come because it is a male plant that will develop only small male product only. It doesn't produce any fruits. Okay. So monoecious is male flower and female flower are present in the same plant. Dioecious, male flower and female flower are present in the different plants. Okay, understood? This is dicliny unisexuality. Here, the flowers will have only one sex organ, only one reproductive part, either male or female. So point number 2. So if we speak about this dicliny or unisexuality, then monocliny or bisexuality. Here the single flower will bear both male part and female part. More male part and both the sexes are present in the same flower. So in this we have to discuss more, because many types are there. Maximum we see this bisexuality, bisexual flower only we see everywhere. So what are the possibilities in this? That let's discuss one by one now. So when we speak about the bisexual flower, can you say one bisexual flower? Yes, hibiscus. Hibiscus is a bisexual flower. It has stamens and stigma both in the same flower. Many plants will have like this only. Okay. Now, in that the first type is dichogamy. Dichogamy. Dichogamy we discussed somewhere, isn't it? Yes, in self-pollination. Third point we discussed. That is, these anthers, stamens and stigma different mature at different time. Mature at different time. Stamens and stigma mature at different time. That is dichogamy, isn't it? So in this we have two types. One is protandry. Protandry. Protandry, here stamens mature earlier. Stamens mature earlier than stigma. Helianthus, our sunflower. In sunflower plant, stamens mature earlier than the stigma. That is said to be protandry. Another one is protogyny. What will be protogyny? Obviously, if this is stamens mature earlier, then protogyny is nothing but stigma mature earlier. Okay, stigmas mature earlier in some plants like Scrophularia. In Scrophularia, stigma matures earlier than stamens. Okay, so totally dichogamy is nothing but stamens and stigma mature at different type. Accordingly, it is classified into protandry and protogyny. Now, second type is heterogamy. Heterogamy. You imagine hibiscus flower. In hibiscus flower, you would have seen the stamens, isn't it? And stigma, where is the stigma? Stigmas are present at the top, isn't it? So this stamen, it should fall on the stigma of the same flower means. Is it possible? Is it possible? Because stamens are lying below, stigmas are present above. It is not possible, isn't it? So that process is called as heterogamy. That is, the stamens and stigmas are arranged in such a way to prevent self-pollination. Self-pollination will not occur in such cases. Somehow cross-pollination only possible here. So heterogamy is arrangement, total arrangement itself. Okay, we will write as arrangement itself prevents self-pollination. Hibiscus is a good example where stigma lies above the stamen. And one more example is Gloriosa. Gloriosa plant, if you see, the stigma will be present here, stamens all will be lying here. So totally they are in the different plane. So that is not possible for any self-pollination. So that is said to be heterogamy. Then third one. Third one is also an interesting one where this pollination occurs. So third one, heterostyly. What is hetero? Different. Styly, style. Okay, that is the length of the style. Length of the style differs. The length of the style differs, so that cross-pollination only is possible in such flowers. So the length of the stamens and styles, it will be different. They are not of the same size. To our surprise, even the flowers produced in the same plant will have different length of style or stamen. That's very interesting to know. You can search in Google also. Some plants they will produce different things. And in that, the first type is distyly. Distyly. Here, two types. You imagine. So one, this is the stigma, style ovary. At the same time, the anthers are present here. Okay, this is one type. And in another flower, this is ovule and this is the style. So this is female stigma, length of the style is long here. Here stamens, the filament is very short. Here at the same time the style is small, but at the same time the anthers long. Anthers are long. So how the pollination occurs here? So this flower is different, this flower is different. So of the same length, no? So the pollination occurs. This is one flower. This is another flower. So cross pollination occurs here. So this is distyly. Distyly. Hope you understood distyly. The length is different here. That is said to be different. So this we call as thrumide style, or so you would have. You can refer the book also. This is one type. And second type, dear students, so in tristyly, three flowers are produced where the style length will be different. For example, the one will have a long style, the one with a normal style, normal length, and another one short length. So three flowers are produced. In this, how will be the stamens? One will have normal stamens with the normal filament length will be normal, and also short filamented anthers will also be present. And in another one, if you see long filamented stamens and also short filament. And in third one, normal and also longer one. So now, how the pollination occurs here? So this stigma will be pollinated by these two stamens, and this one by this, and here it will be like this. So the pollination occurs among three different flowers. Lythrum is a good example for this tristyly. Okay, this is individual flower. This is a flower. This is a flower. There are three types of flowers are seen here. I'll show you the pictures of these flowers. Then fourth type is self-incompatibility or self-infertility. That is the flower if it is self-pollinated, if the stamen of the same flower lands on the stigma, it won't accept. Okay, genetically it is arranged like that. So some self-infertility occurs, therefore self-pollination is prevented. So these are the types of pollination. Just go through them, very interesting to learn. And when you see flowers anywhere hereafter, you should see how the stamens are present there and how the style is there. All you should think about. Okay, stay safe, stay home. Thank you.